Hello and welcome to another morning bulletin from Blood Red. We are your Liverpool.com team. I'm James Martin and I'm joined by Ben Bocsak today. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. And today on our topic of discussion, we have James Milner. After some interesting comments from Jurgen Klopp, potentially some unexpected comments, we're going to start straight away with a little bit of clarification from then. He was talking about talks with Milner. Apparently, the word from the club is that those are just kind of literally conversations he had had with Milner rather than any sort of formal contract talks or anything like that with the club. But nonetheless, it does raise the question as to the future of a player who now firmly falls into the veteran category. Ben, were you just sort of assuming that come the end of the season, Milner would be moving on?
Yeah, it felt like time, didn't it? He's 36 now. He's getting to the end of his prime for sure. It felt like it was the perfect sort of time for him to move on and I don't know, maybe join Leeds and play out his career there. But obviously, with how frequently Klopp uses him, and he obviously still thinks he's an integral part of the team. So maybe that will not be the case.
Yeah, and do you think there's an element of new signings would need to come in before Liverpool have a hugely clear idea of his future in the sense that currently he's fairly high up the sort of cover pecking order for both right back and centre midfield?
Definitely, I think that we definitely need cover in those areas for sure. When it comes to the right back position, especially, I feel like that's an area where Liverpool are very short of. Without Trent Alexander-Arnold, you had Neco Williams go out on loan, and if he's enjoying regular minutes on loan when Fulham get promoted potentially, and if Fulham are still interested in him, I think that's a tempting option for Liverpool to go for that deal, for whether that be a permanent or a loan deal. And then you find yourself very short of right back cover, and Milner is someone who, I mean, he doesn't he can do a job, not to of a huge quality. I'd say it's definitely a drop in sort of quality when he comes into the right back slot, but he is someone who is capable of filling in there.
Yeah, I think the Man City game is still fresh in all of our minds, where he just got torn apart. But then, equally, some out and out right backs have been put to shame by some of those City attackers. So maybe not the fairest of tests. But yeah, you mentioned Nico Williams there. I think he got an assist and man of the match in the last Fulham game, so he's started life well there. Whether that means he comes back and slots in again as a second choice at Liverpool, or whether, like you say, he has the taste for minutes now, and that means he might be on his way, that probably does have a bearing on Milner's future. But equally, Liverpool are looking to the long-term future, or at least they should be. You look at some of the other signings they're making. You look at Fabio Carvalho, who nearly came through the door in January. Clearly, there's more than half an eye on the future. And I mean, a 36-year-old, with all due respect, probably doesn't fit that comfortably into it. So if he is sticking around, it is a short-term plan. But if FSG are looking long-term, maybe things like coaching is on the agenda. Do you think there's a way Liverpool could sort of structure a new deal with sort of coaching qualifications and a potential transition into a backroom role in mind?
I think so. I think that would be the way to go about it. I think we kind of saw a bit of that, or there was mentions of it in the summer last year, and we've seen a lot of former Liverpool players now move into coaching roles. Some even unexpected ones potentially. I mean, who would have thought Fernando Torres would be the manager of the Atletico Madrid under-19 team, and Milner is probably not one of those who would be a surprise if he moves into a managerial role or a coaching role, even because of his experience and because of his leadership in the team. Everyone speaks highly of him when they are discussing Milner, and he seems like he gets on well with all the players in the Liverpool team. Uh, he also must be a fairly intelligent player tactically as well, because of his ability to play in so many roles. I think he has to have a certain element of tactical understanding for him to become a good coach.
Yeah, and I think that wealth of experience as well. I mean, he has seen almost the evolution of the game in the last decade, 2 decades, and not too many players are in that kind of position to have played through it like that.
Yeah, I mean, as well, he's gone through all the stages of being a footballer as well, from being a wonder kid, making your debut at 16. So he understands that side of the game coming through and how difficult that is when you're so young and you have a lot of pressure on you. And now he's transitioned into the sort of veteran role as well. So the fact that he's been on both sides as well, I think will help him.
Yeah, and you mentioned that sort of empathy with the kids. We've seen that in the kind of cup ties where he's not been in the squad, the matchday squad, but he still turned up to sit on the bench and kind of give that support to the youngsters. I suppose there is a case that kind of invaluable element is worth keeping him around for, but there comes a point where if he's on player wages, he's got to still have a role to play on the pitch. Otherwise, it's potentially not worth renewing the deal. And like you say, it did kind of feel like it was coming to a natural end. But as you pointed out, he made his debut at 16. He's amassed a lot of Premier League games now, and part of me wonders whether he does have half an eye on that Gareth Barry record. There's still quite a way to go, though. He's got 73 more games needed to tie that record, which is essentially 2 more full seasons. Do you reckon a move to somewhere like Leeds would see him have a shot at that, or do you reckon the chance is probably gone now?
I think so. I mean, he's still winning all the lactate tests in pre-season by all accounts. So I wouldn't worry if he were to go to Leeds that he wouldn't be able to keep up. He's still very much in peak condition. So you would say maybe he doesn't have the pace as he used to, but in terms of stamina and energy, he's right up there still. And I think just based on that, you could see him featuring regularly for a Premier League team. I mean, it's just unfortunate that he is at Liverpool, where there's so much competition at the moment and a lot of rotation as well. So you don't. That's why I can't really see him breaking that record if he were to stay at Liverpool for the rest of his career and retire here.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think it would be a big stretch to see him break it at Anfield, and that's possibly something that'll be playing on his mind. But record or no record, I do think he's going to want to carry on playing. He's mentioned that in interviews that kind of the talk of coaching hasn't necessarily come from him in terms of the short-term plans. He very much still views himself as a player. He said something interesting about how, life after retiring as a player is very long for a footballer. So prolonging the playing career as much as possible is probably first in the agenda at the moment. And do you think that's kind of a shift in recent times in football, that players have that more of an understanding in terms of you're a long time retired, and with sports science improved, things like that? Do you think we'll be seeing more players playing long into their 30s?
Potentially. I think obviously right now Liverpool are sort of hesitant to. One of the reasons why Liverpool are hesitant to extend the contracts of the likes of Mane and Salah is because they're worried about, them getting on in age in terms of 34, 33 by the time if they sign a long-term contract. That's how old they'll be. But we've seen with a fair few players recently. I mean, even Lionel Messi, who's close to Milner in age, he's still performing at a fairly high level at Paris Saint-Germain. And he did well at the Copa America as well, top goal scorer alongside Luis Diaz. So we've seen a lot of players make grounds in that, and I think with sports science, with all the specialist staff that Liverpool have at their disposal, it is an area where if you remain committed and if you just put in the work and have the right nutrition, you can last a long time in the game now.
Yeah, I don't think Modric is too far away from Milner age-wise either, and he's still essentially first name on the team sheet over at Real Madrid. Even with the midfielders they've got coming through, he's keeping a lot of promising young talent out of the team, essentially, like Valverde, Camavinga, struggling for minutes there compared to Modric. So, yeah, it's not necessarily a firm barrier to playing at the top level, even in the middle of the park where Milner would ideally be playing. But yeah, I think we're probably both agreed that the time of him being a regular is up at Liverpool. What the future holds, it's interesting to see. I think long term, we both expect him to go into that kind of coaching role. Whether that's something that Liverpool will benefit from or another club remains to be seen. But yeah, some discussions to be had over the next weeks and months between Klopp and Milner, potentially the club. As we say, those haven't happened at this stage, apart from just informal talks with Klopp and the player. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But ideally, we're probably thinking in the summer, get some fresh blood in, centre mid, right back, and then maybe Milner, the faithful servant, would have run his course. But undoubtedly has been a real asset to the club and one of the best free transfers in Liverpool's history. So I'll just quickly throw that over to you, Ben, before we sign off.
Yeah, I mean that's how you have to do it. You have to see who you can get in the summer if there is players that are available, and if they are good enough, if Liverpool see them as good enough to replace and fill that void that Milner will leave behind, then obviously it makes sense to bring in a fresher blood. But if Liverpool don't think this summer is the one, then having Milner on for another year is not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, not bad options to have. And yeah, one of Liverpool's most faithful servants over the years, predating the Klopp era just about. He's seen it all. And yeah, if he sees one more year, then I don't think there'll be too many strong complaints. So we'll keep an eye on that one. For now, thank you very much for tuning in to the Morning Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same places. Keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, check out all of our written content over on liverpool.com. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow.